Kia ora, good evening. A new breast screening service provider is being sought for the Southland region. The Southern District Health Board has decided not to renew its contract with the National Screening Unit in the Ministry of Health, and a tender for a new provider will be launched in the next 2 weeks. The NSU, which will run the bidding process, says it will continue to work with the Health Board until a new service is in place. The radiology team in Breast Screen County's Manukau has been supporting the Southern service, but only as an interim arrangement. A new provider is expected to take over later next year. The tender will be on the New Zealand Government Electronic Tenders Service website for 4 weeks. Invercargill's Southern Institute of Technology held its second open day for the year today to match the growing interest in the institute from outside of Southland. Marketing Liaison Officer Andre Robertson says this was the first time the Institute had held a second open day, as there had been an increase in interest from outside the region. He says one prospective student had travelled from as far north as Kerikeri to see what the Institute had to offer. Although numbers were down from the first open day earlier this year, the 150 secondary students that did attend showed the Institute's zero fee scheme was still a major drawcard over other universities and polytechs. The open day offered students the chance to meet tutors, observe classes in progress and a tour of the facilities. First-time councillor Julie Keast, who represents the Waihopai Toitois ward, was the only female elected to sit on the Southland District Council. Rachel Meredith asked Mrs Keast about the added pressure this will bring to her new role.
I do feel quite a responsibility to be that voice for women, yes.
Is there any chance it could be an advantage for you, do you think?
We might have to see how the issues work out. I'll certainly be bringing the woman's perspective to council table.
Why do you think so few women are actually standing for local bodies, or is it an issue with not being voted in?
Good question. As I say, I was surprised that there weren't more women standing, and yes, I'm not sure what the answer to that one is really. It will be something that I will be asking people as I'm getting around the ward meeting people.
Is it important in this day and age to have more of an equal representation on local bodies, do you think?
Yes, I think that having more of a balance actually brings a better view or range of viewpoints to the council table, and why more women didn't stand, I'm not sure about that.
Are there any different issues you think that women councillors might bring to the table that wouldn't otherwise be heard if it was all male?
I wonder whether they are issues to bring to the table, or whether it's just the female perspective might come from a different viewpoint around the table.
And what's your personal reason for deciding to stand for council?
I was asked a couple of times actually, and didn't take it seriously, or it was suggested that I stand, and then I was asked, and I then looked into it a little bit more, but I really hadn't given it a lot of thought prior to nominations opening. So maybe there were more women in that situation too that didn't have somebody prodding them saying, you could do that, you should stand.
And you're confident that you're going to have your voice heard in council?
I am but one on around the table, so I do have that responsibility to make sure that I am heard, especially being the only woman sitting around there.
The Sunrise Rotary Club held a special breakfast this morning to celebrate pride in workmanship. Outstanding employees were presented with plaques to acknowledge their commitment to the workplace. Hunter Andrews spoke to Sunrise Vocational Director Wayne Hunt.
The awards are a Rotary International program where it's a way of recognising the extra effort that people put in, or put an extra mile for their employer. So it's not taken up by all clubs, but it's taken up by quite a few around the world. So it's a great way of recognising people who do that extra bit. So.
And they certainly looked like worthy candidates.
Yes, we were great today. We had 6 high calibre candidates. They did very well, so yeah, it was great.
And this is an annual award. Anyone members nominate their workers or anyone they've noticed in the workforce?
Anyone that's noticed in the works, we try and circulate it around to get outside of our Rotary group. It is annual, it's the 14th year we've run this award, so it's very well received, and you walk around town, you see the plaques on the wall at different places that you'll see that have been gone from years gone by, so it's very well received and we're very proud to have it.
After the break, Deputy Prime Minister Bill English on the local body elections. Welcome back. Deputy Prime Minister and MP for Clutha Southland, Bill English, is looking forward to hearing from new Southland District Mayor Gary Tong. Mr Tong's key issue in the lead up to the election was the need for more proactive intervention from central government around infrastructural issues such as roading. Hunter Andrews asked Mr English for his thoughts on the low voter turnout and Mr Tong's concerns for the region.
Local government turnout's been pretty low for the last 50 or 60 years compared to general election. I saw some figures going back to the 60s where the turnout was somewhere between 40 and 50%. But actually it was high here compared to further north where it was down under 40%.
How do you feel about that? I mean, is that of concern? Is that of discussion within central government?
Look, I think there will be a discussion about it, but look, people often, when people think things are running not too badly, they don't turn out to vote necessarily. When they think there's some big issues, they do. I think further north where there's complicated voting systems, that's a fairly significant turn-off. People just, when they've got STV, for instance, they just can't understand how they're meant to vote.
A quick word about retiring Mayor Frana Cardno. What were your relations with her? Good?
Oh, well, Frana's been the Mayor for around well over 20 years while I've been the Member of Parliament, so we've crossed paths many times, and I've always admired her positive attitude, particularly with communities, because for many communities when the Mayor turns up, that's a special occasion, and she's always been so positive, energetic, and people have been in no doubt that she's on their side, and those are pretty special qualities in a Mayor.
Let's talk about the three candidates who stood for the district. Gary Tong, of course, has won the mayoralty. No experience on council, but that didn't seem to account for much with voters. They all ran on infrastructure and roading. Is that a key issue for you?
Well, it's been an issue for New Zealand, and I've been the Minister of Infrastructure for 5 years. So now we've got a much better national overview of infrastructure. In fact, here in Southland District, there's some very innovative planning tools, which I hope the local government and the rest of the country takes up, to show the value of every single piece of road, and that's going to give us a real insight into how whether the funding regime needs to be changed, how it can be changed. The whole roading funding system at the moment is choking a bit on the Waterview project in Auckland. I mean, that's very necessary for fixing the infrastructure of Auckland, but it's taking a lot of cash. It's a bit like the lump, you know, the goat moving through the snake. Once it's digested, then there will be a lot more choices about what to do with the transport fund.
We can be forgiven, though, for thinking it is a very Auckland central attitude now, really, from central government, and maybe rightly so, but there are many things going on down here in a less densely populated region that contributes an enormous amount to the GDP.
Yeah, look, I think it's the issue in Auckland has been finishing their roading network, but they haven't had one. And they've got a set of problems that need to be solved. So they are getting solved. The number of big projects have been completed, and the Waterview one, which is the largest roading project in the Southern Hemisphere, will wind through over the next 3 or 4 years. So there's no lack of attention to infrastructure everywhere else because of the ongoing advocacy of local government, but also people like the road transport operators, federated farmers. They're always at the government, so the issues are pretty well understood.
According to Gary Tong, you will be hearing from him.
I'm sure I will. I've known Gary for a long time. He used to be the cop out in Tuatapere, and he built a fine motorhome for himself, which I got a close look at a few years back. So I expect I'll be hearing from him. He's, Gary's a good, straightforward operator. I don't think anyone will be confused about what he thinks.
The Banking Ombudsman has released its annual report with cases referred to the office up on the previous year. It had been thought cases would decrease as a result of the consequences of the global financial crisis easing. However, the Ombudsman received 16% more cases in 2012 to 13. Nearly a third of the dispute cases that qualified to be heard by the Ombudsman's office resulted in a favourable outcome for customers, either partially or in full. Customer compensation increased to $598,000 in 2012 to 13, up from just over $505,000 the previous year. That's all from the news team tonight. Sports up next. We'll leave you now with the week that was. Good night.
Joy is a comer, soon she gonna happen. Think of with a lot to say. It's a groove, this life. My dear friend is a drinker, tan and alcoholic. His bones are bleaching in the sun. Mackie is a schemer, says he got some music, couldn't get arrested with a gun. But it's a groove, this life, oh, it's a groove. Whoa. Is it rich enough? Is it strange enough? Is it full enough? This life, enough? Do we change enough? Is it full enough? This life, driver, past the age of reason, used to be a Green Beret. What's up with the sun?